Welcome, friends, to episode 262 of Color Magic, your Magic Gaming podcast, where we talk about all types of issues that affect gamers at and away from their gaming tables and computers. I am your host, barely alive, but here, PowrDragn, and still got my main man who hopefully is more rested than I am, Brian Sonic. How's it going, dude?
I probably am, because I didn't have to fly anywhere. It would be
Yeah,
the main. Other than that, yeah. I'm juggling
man,
with a
I
bunch
got
of
to tell
stuff
you,
too, but I didn't have the jet lag. So
have you heard any of my videos I recorded in the last 48 hours? I had that like sexy Luther Vandross voice because I was like losing my voice. Where it was rough, man. It was rough, but it was good. That means we saw a lot of people.
yep.
We talked to a lot of folks. Like MagicCon, I'm hearing numbers over 16K of people that showed up. So it was a very, very busy weekend. Lots of business got done, and it was good. So no hate. Just between that and the travel, it took me about 2 days to recover when I got home.
Right.
Is all. But before we get into things, I want to remind y'all, if you want to support the show, check us out at patreon.com/color of magic. And if you have the iPhone app for Patreon, I believe it is, they're going to be moving everybody to like first of the month payments or some such.
I
So
did
you may,
see something about that.
yeah, you may want to check your app and get all that squared away because I think that starts next month. So you may want to get on that or middle of November, I think. Either way, you want to get on top of it if you're using the iPhone app because I didn't know people really use the app for Patreon. Everybody know just use their website. So there you go. But either way, want to give a shout out to Dane Desai. Thank you for being a patron. And let's talk about some stuff. Let's start with MagicCon because we found out a lot of previews, a lot of spoilers, a lot of reveals. One, though, that got people talking both on the show floor and online was that we're going to get a SpongeBob secret lair. And people were asking me, like, how do you feel about it? And I'm like, I don't know. I hadn't even processed it. Like, generally, I'm just like, it's a secret lair. I don't really care. There's been a lot of secret lairs.
You
I'm
won't
not,
be able to get it anyway. Don't worry.
that's not totally wrong, probably. Until they change things, if you're not, in the first 30 minutes, you're probably not going to get one
Yeah.
because you got to get in the queue. So that's its own thing. But I thought about it. Like, I've seen maybe 5 episodes of SpongeBob, possibly.
Oh wow. So you really are not into it at
Yeah,
all.
I'm thinking real hard. It's less than 10, maybe more than 5, definitely less than 10.
Yeah.
I just haven't watched a lot of it. So like I don't have a connection, but with that in mind, it didn't immediately bother me. It wasn't like, "Oh my god, I can't," cuz now if we were doing, I don't know, a commander set where there's going to be like a SpongeBob and was it a Patrick and then the squirrel chick or whatever and they're all getting their
This
different things.
girl chick.
I
He
don't know
really
anybody. I
is
told you
not joking. He's not a.
I don't watch a lot of SpongeBob,
But
man.
Sandy is from Texas. You feel like you should know
I
Sandy too.
should. I should. She's a little squirrel with the diver helmet or whatever, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Sandy, right? Then I would maybe see an issue, right? Because then we're going to see a lot of cards. But this right now is just a secret lair. Probably getting somewhere between 5 and 10, probably at most 15 cards. Likely all just going to be reprints just with SpongeBob art on them. Now, there is some fun stuff we might get, right? It might be, I was thinking immediately, a food token that's a Krabby Patty, right? That kind of makes sense.
And I'm assuming Plankton will probably have a giant robot that'll be a reprint of a Karn or something.
Yeah,
So
something
seems like
like
that
that.
would work.
I could see that. And that doesn't seem awful. Because to me, that's no different than if somebody just got an artist to do like their own fan art on a card, which we
I,
already see anyway.
I think that the thing is, SpongeBob got announced at the same time as, oh, by the way, Universes Beyond will be standard legal going forward. So SpongeBob kind of got lumped in with that, even though he really, in the grand scheme of things, probably didn't have a whole lot to do with that. But he's the face of it right now, for better or for worse. Because
That's fair.
we know Marvel's coming, but Marvel ain't coming until sometime next year. So SpongeBob is going to draw all the hate, and yeah, that's the thing that people are upset about. Really, is that Universe Beyond is going to be standard legal, and a lot of people are just not happy about that.
But even then, like, unless one of the cards in the secret lair happens to already be standard legal, you're not going to see SpongeBob in standard.
Oh, you won't, but I'm saying it's
Yeah.
just, Universes Beyond really is a story. SpongeBob is kind of the
Sure.
face of the thing that angered everybody.
But
Yeah.
I think we could talk about that on 2 levels as well, too. Because one of the things about Universes Beyond is it is bringing a lot of people in, and I want to talk about that in a second. But
Yeah.
one of the things I think is beneficial, especially for standard, is like, hey, if people are coming in because let's say they like Final Fantasy, and then they can go play with the Final Fantasy cards at their local store in qualifier tournaments or whatever, they're likely to be more engaged with the game, and you're going to sell more product, right?
But are those people going to stay after Final Fantasy cycles out of standard? I guess it's the next game. Do they have data on that yet? Because how long we've
I
been doing Universes
I will
Beyond?
say, and that's kind of the next point in my conversation. We are seeing those people kind of recurring at MagicCon events, so they're at least staying engaged with the game on some level. I
Okay.
don't know what the high level numbers are, but we are seeing people out at these shows, and the numbers are growing. But I think if you want to keep growing standard, giving these people a place to play their cards is important. Because if we look back at Lord of the Rings, which was a great seller, by the way, so I mean, good idea, everybody made money. We're really only talking about 10 cards from the set that show up with any regularity in tournament play,
Which
really.
is true of pretty much every set, really.
But if it's a standard legal set, now more of those cards will get played with. More of those themes will be able to be played with. Like they're not powerful enough to be able to compete with all the different modern cards and modern decks or whatever, except for, like the One Ring, the Orcish Bowmaster, stuff like that. But you could have had a food themed deck that might have been playable in standard, right? It at least been on similar power level.
Are there any food decks that have really lit up standard for?
Well, I will say there's some that could have used some of those pieces from, Lord of the Rings because they're close, but they need a couple more cards. But Lord of the Rings is sitting here with like 25 cards or so that reference food.
Yeah.
That, or maybe not that many, probably like 18 cards that reference food that aren't getting used at all. So it's just like, but man, if some of these could have been played in standard, maybe, So I'm cool with it at least as an experiment for a couple of years to see what happens.
And plus, I'm only speaking for myself here, as a really a parallel person I really
Hmm.
can completely speak for. But I'd have a huge problem with Lord of the Rings because Lord of the Rings fits perfectly into
Sure, sure,
Magic. It's swords and sorcery. Let's say Marvel, Doctor Who is a whole different. Doctor Who, as a matter of fact, literally tells you magic does not exist. If somebody is doing
sure.
magic in Doctor Who's universe, they're an alien, and it's just a significantly advanced technology. So that's that breaks the theme super hard.
I feel you. But like I've argued, like somebody's buying these because they're having to go to reprint and fans love them. And at the end of the day, as much, and I tell people like, I'm still on the board of it would be nice if the story meant more to people and whatever, but it just doesn't. It
But that's
never
kind of
has.
but isn't that Wizard's fault though?
I don't care whose fault it is. It never has, though. Even when they made the storybooks and everything else, if you ask the average player, even in my shops, people are just buying cards because they like the cards. Here's the thing though, right? I had this conversation with somebody recently in my Discord about kind of why the story is a bigger part of Warhammer, not Magic. And I think it's really the fact that for something to exist in Warhammer, it's actually almost a story thing first. And he's like, you read this novel and there's this cool character or this cool unit, and then they make it a thing for you to go buy. Whereas with Magic, a set is 250 cards, right? Like, not every single piece is going to get to have a story. So people just buy things that they're more attached to the deck or an artist or a theme more than they are the actual story behind the card.
But well, that depends on the person too. Like a lot,
Sure.
like
Absolutely.
as Lawrence mentioned, a lot of people wanted to be, especially people of color, wanted to be hyped about the Gatewatch, but other than Gideon, they were all white.
For
So it's
sure.
just you couldn't really get hyped about it.
For sure. But even when they made Vivian, like, it's cool that we have a melanated planeswalker, but I was there while they were working on Vivian. I can't tell you nothing about Vivian other than she has this weird bow that makes like glowy animals. Like, I don't, serious, that's literally all I know. And then she wears a hooded cloak thing. Like, that's all I got. I can tell you what she looked like. I can tell you the weapon she used. I can tell you what her cards do. I like the character. She's my avatar in Magic Arena. Has been since I started
Mine
playing.
also.
But like, I know nothing about it, right? But if you give me sweet cards to play with, I'm gonna play with them. If the cards suck, I'm not gonna use them.
And
And I
again,
think,
that's if you do something cool, because as we talked about this over the weekend, I'm hearing that apparently one of the best pieces of Magic lore ever has been published recently. But I heard that on Magic Twitter. I didn't hear that from Wizards of the Coast. That would have been nice if they had told me, but I had to find out on Twitter.
yeah, but like if a company tells you this is the best thing we've ever written, like you need to hear it from somebody else. You know what I mean?
You didn't tell. They didn't tell me it existed. Not even that it was good. They literally didn't tell me that that it happened. I had to find out from somebody else. But I heard about SpongeBob, which that's I think where the disconnect happens.
I don't know. I just feel like every time I've seen them notify anything I've seen related to story, it just doesn't hit. And I can tell you, even like, and don't get me wrong, there's still a part of the community that does care about story. So I'm not saying nobody, but I'm just saying if we were, I honestly believe this, if we went to any random store and we just went through 100 people, how many do we think would actually know any significant part of random cards in their commander deck if we just picked them at random? A couple handful, maybe.
And that to me is a failure on the half on part of the company. This is
But
why
the question is it? Like, if that's not the focus and you're still able to sell $1 billion worth of Magic cards, is it a failure?
well apparently you're no longer able to sell those because now you need SpongeBob and Spider-Man.
No, I don't. That's the thing. I don't even know if it's a need, but it's a thing that had been asked many times. So they tested it and it worked. So now they're just going to give it to you because everybody buys it.
You are now literally paying your competitor and promoting their product.
I wouldn't even call them a competitor, really, but
You
I
would
get what you're
call
saying.
Disney a competitor?
No, like,
You would wait, you don't call Lorcana a competitor to Magic.
not really. It's another card game, but you're going after different markets. It's
So
a
I mean,
it's a
would we
card game on the market, sure, but that's about as far as it goes. Same way that like Pokemon technically a competitor, but the crossover just isn't hitting there. I mean,
I think probably if you offered people a Pokemon Magic deck, some people would buy it.
sure, like let's do it, but they're not going to
Pokemon's
go.
for example, if Pokemon's former popular than Assassin's Creed, it would have been a better choice than Assassin's Creed. I think we'd both
That
be in
I
agreement
agree
on
with,
that.
but people aren't going to not buy Magic. Like, I don't believe Pokemon existing in Magic makes people want Pokemon more than Magic, right? They already want Pokemon. They just get to have their Pokemon on their Magic,
Well, no,
right?
somebody has never heard of Pokemon before, crazy as it is. So
That's probably true.
in the same way that people are just learning about Magic through Universes Beyond, somebody is going to learn
Sure.
about Pokemon or in this case, somebody's going to learn about Spider-Man by picking up Magic cards. As wild as that seems.
But if you're still getting the benefit of everybody already being a fan of Pokemon, buying, I don't know, $10 million of Magic cards, then fine, fair trade. That's why you do the contracts, because both sides believe it works for them. I'm sure same thing can be said about Doctor Who and Warhammer and Fallout or whatever, right? Like, you make enough money off of it, that's the part of the exchange. That's why you do crossover projects. Like, do they need those to keep selling cards, keep selling Magic cards? Probably not, but it's the easy road. Like,
And I think that's what a lot of people have a problem with. It is the easy, as many people said, it's the Fortnite route to doing things.
sure. But don't, again, I probably said it 100 times on the show. We can bitch about it all we want. But if we're going to keep doing it while we're handing them $100 bills, they're going to keep doing it. Right. They're probably not going to do the small sets anymore because they tried it with March of Machines. They tried it with Assassin's Creed and they didn't sell them. So we probably ain't going to see those no more. Right.
And to
As
me,
much
again,
as,
that was the choice of property. I think had that been something more popular than Assassin's Creed, that could have moved.
oh, sure. But the lesson they're going to take away from that is we've now done this twice with a magic thing and a non magic thing. We probably shouldn't do this format anymore. So
I mean, and I probably would agree with them that they shouldn't do it anymore. It has not
oh
not
yeah,
worked.
I agree with you. If you did a small set and had that been the Final Fantasy or
Yeah,
Pokemon, or where it probably would have just sold like
Lord,
gangbusters because of the
had it
property.
been Hatsune Miku, oh my god!
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm with you. So property has a lot to do with it, but it was negative feedback across the board on that packaging format anyway. So
Yeah.
you probably won't see that again. But again, the dollar speak, right? They saw the sales, whatever. Lord of the Ring, out of the park. Like Warhammer decks, I think we went through, I think they were on like a fifth printing of those decks or something. Doctor Who sold out. People had trouble getting the
Warhammer, you could even argue, is a thematic fit because magic does exist in the Warhammer universe.
sure. But I'm just saying everything's selling, right? So I don't fault them for doing it. Like, do I have to love it? No, but I get it from a business perspective.
Mhm.
Like, I get why they did it. Now, the next part though that I did want to talk about, kind of to your point of like, are these people sticking around? We are seeing those people at shows. And I talked to a couple of creators. Like I said, I saw Krim and some others also, Asian Avenger, for people who know his real name. Like, were posting even on social media that they were having similar conversations, that fans were coming in because of these products. And in some cases, feeling a little embarrassed or ashamed or whatever because other people already in the community don't like those products and they hear the negativity around them. So that's kind of a weird thing because, even when they came up and talked to me at the booth, where I'd be like, yeah, I've only been playing as long as, insert their favorite Universes Beyond thing. And I'm like, well, that's still
Yeah.
like 2 years or whatever. And we just have a conversation about how long they've been
Yep.
playing. But you can tell they're already like, I kind of got in when this came out. And, like thinking you might look down on them because it wasn't a traditional Magic product, but they're still buying stuff today, right? They're still buying new cards. They're still buying old singles to fill out their commander decks. So that being out there does create a weird situation because I knew some people didn't like it. Don't be wrong. Like
Yeah.
we knew there's some people that are never going to like Universes Beyond for whatever. But I didn't realize like it was enough that some people felt bad, I guess,
Oh, that
for
doesn't
buying in on their
surprise me
favorite
in the
thing.
least. It's like, have you met Magic players? Or like we said, gamers in general? That doesn't surprise me in the least that that's happening.
Yeah, that's weird because like it's not the fault of that person that they
It
like
is
Doctor
not.
Who or Fallout or Lord of the Rings or
And
whatever
there's
the
nothing
case is.
wrong with the fact that they like that property,
Yeah,
brother. This is,
that's my thing. Like, why hate on them? They just bought the thing that was on the shelf. Like, they're like, hey, I heard there was a Warhammer 40K thing, and I'm a big Warhammer fan, and I'd heard about Magic, but I never played. This seemed like a good time to start playing. And now they just play forever,
and
right?
I guess you've answered your own question. Like, this won't go away as long as people keep buying it. So some people are actively doing that in the hopes that these people won't buy it anymore. It's a The answer to the
Maybe,
question is unfortunately obvious.
but yeah, but it's bringing in lots of new faces. There were a ton of people you talked to that, like, oh yeah, I started playing because of this, or I got my wife to play because of this thing, or whatever. Because they're fans of one of those other things, and that's all it took to close the curiosity gap, basically.
Yeah.
Like I'd heard about Magic and I'd seen tournaments online or had friends that play when I grew up, but I never really played it. And then like, oh, but now there's this thing I'm a big fan of. Well, you know what? Let me go get a starter deck and try it out. Right?
Yeah.
And you know what that's like? That's that
Yep.
get that first one. That's really all it is. So from a marketing standpoint, it works. So it creates this weird thing of like, I get it if we don't like all the properties, because again, SpongeBob, hell, there were people that were huge fans of like Princess Bride, and other people were just like, okay, I guess, whatever. That was also a secret layer. We've had Transformers, we'd have Jurassic Park has been one, right? Which is all fine and good, but at the end of the day, they're still Magic cards. If you change the art on them, I would still play them as though they're just Magic cards. And a bunch of them, at some point in the future, we will probably get I guess they're calling it Universes Within set that's going to have to reprint a bunch of these.
Yeah.
And those licenses will be long expired. So you'll get some Magic art variants of a lot of this stuff. Because at some point, the Lord of the Rings stuff will need reprints, right? The Warhammer stuff will
Yeah.
need reprints. Now, it might be 2026, 2027, but at some point, a lot of those cards are going to end up being 15, 20, $30 cards, and
Yep.
there's just not going to be any out there. And that's easy money for Wizards. We already know that. They do reprint sets with big cards, people buy them.
Yep.
And they've already shown when those reprints get done, they get Magic themed artwork or whatever. So we'll probably have Magic versions of a lot of this stuff. So I think that solves some of the problem anyway. But yeah, I mean, it was just weird to see that was a very, because I thought, I encountered it a couple of times, so I talked to some folks about it at like dinner, And then you find out, like, oh, this is a thing that's come up for a few folks already. So, like,
I'm not shocked at all seeing the way people we're just we're fresh off of death threats over commander card. This doesn't shock me at all.
you ain't lying. You ain't lying. Hey, and to that point, thank you to all the people that showed up and were actually civil about everything. Not just civil, I would even say cautiously optimistic about the future. It was a whole different vibe, dude. Like,
Right?
for real. It was like the other stuff, everybody kind of went, yeah, that was bad. It's water under the bridge. We all screwed up. We're just gonna move on. And that's literally was the vibe all weekend. Because I was thinking, all right, there's gonna be somebody who wants to come up and yell and complain about a thing and whatever. Like, I didn't have to have that conversation once. So I was like, man, good on y'all. Like,
I was
for
waiting for
real.
someone to be like, "This commander game is not over until you pin me."
Yeah, exactly. Right. So yeah, crazy. But yeah, I just think there's a lot to still talk about where Universes Beyond is concerned. You know, because again, lots is changing. Like you said, it's going to be standard legal now. Where apparently Spider-Man got announced, I guess, in the middle of all that going on. So, like, who knows what's going to be
And
happening?
again, what I would love for them to do if we're going to use Marvel characters is, hey, there's a whole comic book about a dude that's a sorcerer. How about we get a bunch of Doctor Strange stuff? So it fits deeper, but like, no, that
Oh,
apparently is
that's
not
we
what's
know
happening.
that's coming because they've already said there's going to be no less than I think they said 5 sets of Marvel or something like that
You
over
really
the
think they're
next few
doing Doctor
years.
Strange?
I think there's going to be Doctor Strange stuff. It would be hard for
They're
there
not going
not
to
to
do
be.
like, it wouldn't be hard. I mean, if they do, let's say, the top 5 most popular comic books, they'll never get to Doctor Strange.
No, but it looks like they're going to be doing a lot at once, except for Spider-Man, because Spider-Man just has everything and he has a bunch of villains, so it's kind of easy. But I think it sounds like there's going to be a lot of just Marvel comics in general through there, and likely where you can't really use movie properties. You go, right, what movie characters are people already familiar with, but we can do comic versions of them and get them in the game. So you still get those fans in there. Because you can't use the movie stuff, but you can make some Avengers. You can make, some X-Men. You can make a Doctor Strange, but you just got to use the 80s and 90s style comics for them.
We got. I guess I have to bet you a steak dinner or something because
Sounds good.
I don't
We
think we're going to
we
see Doctor
we
Strange.
got we got 3 years to get Doctor Strange in Magic.
Yeah,
Basically, y'all heard it here. That's our steak dinner bet.
I
All
hope
right,
I'm wrong.
let's get into the soapbox a little bit because man, we got some crazy stuff this week. And man, you know how they have the thing of just Florida man, and then something crazy comes after it.
Yeah,
We now have a thing, I think, in our community that's just kick streamer, insert crazy thing. Because this week, and I gotta go look up this dude's name actually, because it's a very uncommon username. The dude, his name is, and I swear to God, I'm not making this up. Dum Dum G's. DUMBJEEZ. Dum Dum G's. But Dum Dum G's decided for some streamer contest thing they were doing, he was apparently going to go befriend a homeless woman, invite her out to dinner at a nice restaurant, streaming the whole thing, by the way, lets her get dinner, orders everything, and then gets up to excuse himself to go get his wallet and just got in his car and left. Left this woman, this homeless woman, with the bill. Now, that, like, one, already doing that to anybody
yeah,
as a prank is
is
dumb and
embarrassing and just
it's just bad in every way. But to do it to somebody that is homeless, that doesn't have the money, that is probably this is the best day they've had in ages,
right
because somebody's taking them out to a nice restaurant, and to just ditch them like that in the middle, like, oh, like that's so, and like
in
I'm
the
trying,
words
like
of a
right now, I'm like trying not to be
yeah
mad for this woman. I've read the story 4 or 5 times,
yeah
like, but seriously, and then
the
after
words of
being
the late
called,
Michael Jackson. They have doo doo in their souls. Doo
yeah,
doo.
exactly, that's exactly it,
Doo doo.
doo doo in their soul. Like the thing is, he tried to downplay, like, no, I talked to the woman ahead of time. We planned this out. It was all scripted. Yet, when people followed up, who reached out to the restaurant, because people immediately were trying to like pay the
Yeah.
woman's tab so she ain't stuck with it and there's no, no cops involved, no nothing. They talked to the restaurant and the restaurant said, no, we already know what's going on. We've already heard about it. Like, we're just going to cover the tab. So she ain't got nothing to worry about. Like, we're just eating the bill. So if that was scripted and you were paying for it, why do all these people have to reach out? Why does the restaurant have to cover the bill? And
Right.
why did Kick follow up, ban you from their servers, and look to try to give the woman 50K? Right? This doesn't sound like it was scripted. This is somebody who just being, I don't know. I try to keep the show clean, but this is literally the definition of an asshole. Like,
Right.
like for real. It's hard. Like outside of like doing something just vile to a person's physical being or like
Yeah. This
kicking
is just
puppies for sport, like you gotta like, dude, like I don't know, man. I was just blown away when I read this story.
this is essentially kicking humans for sport. You may as well say,
Yeah.
or for content, which is even worse. It's just
I'm just like, what like it's hard to
anybody that would watch that content and enjoy it. It's doo
exactly.
doo in their souls, also.
That's the worst part. Now, admittedly, I couldn't find. I think they took it all down, or whatever. So I couldn't find the stream to even follow because I was curious. Like, I wanted to see how chat responded because I'm like you. I want to like how many of these people
Oh,
thought this
there's
was.
a few people that like because the fact that old boy thought he would get positive reinforcement from this means he's. I mean, we've talked about on here how we see people doing prank stuff, and we like. First of all, we would never. Second of all, as black dudes, we could never. We'd get shot.
Mm-mm,
You
mm-mm.
know.
But yeah, I'm with you because that's what I wanted to know. I'm like, I want to know how people responded once they found out this wasn't just like a scripted prank. But I will at least say what I saw online. Now, don't get me wrong. There was a couple of people trying to defend him when he said, "Oh, you already said it was scripted or whatever."
Yeah.
People doubled down and said, "Cool, show me all the ways that this makes sense. This is scripted." Because Kick doesn't seem to believe it.
Right.
Right? The restaurant says it's not. The woman, they're trying to find her right now just so Kick can give her their money. But
For it
hell,
to be scripted, all these people would need to be in on it.
dude, not just that. Like I've helped homeless people before. I've worked with charities that deal with them. Like
Yeah.
they already have a lot going on. Some of them already have mental issues. Like imagine if they already didn't trust people in the system as it is,
Right.
right? Like, how are they going to feel now? Like, let me tell you this. This happened when I was in Philadelphia. I was leaving the convention center, and I was going to walk to a different spot for I had a lift picking me up, but it made more sense to go a couple blocks down because it was less busy. So I'm just walking to the area. I see these couple of homeless folks, and they just ask me if I have something to give them or whatever. I had a thing with a muffin and an apple juice. And it was just like, you know what? I'll just give this to him. I'll just get another one when I get to the airport. No big deal. It cost me like $6 or $7, whatever. So I give it to him. And I swear to you, the guy looks at me and says, like, man, is this pee? And I was just like, I was taken aback for real. Cause I'm like, my first thought is like, what? Like, of course it's not.
Right.
I mean,
Because
it
that's
was,
happened before. Is the
yeah,
sad
see,
part.
that was my second thought. Cause like my first, I was like, dude, it's still sealed. I even told him, like, dude, it's still sealed. You can open it, whatever. But then I thought, this poor dude has had somebody, probably on more than one occasion,
Right.
give him a piss filled bottle. You know what I mean? Like, so these people are already dealing with crap. And then you go and do something like this. Like, I'm glad the whole community came out and just
Yeah.
pummeled this dude. Like, he deserved it.
And as somebody that does murder mysteries at restaurants, I promise you there's no way this was scripted and the restaurant didn't know. Because we got places where we have done murder mysteries every Saturday for 20 years. And we still, when we get there, make sure like, hey, we're gonna fire this toy gun off here. And make sure everybody that needs to know knows. So nobody, especially
Yep.
in this day and age, that nobody thinks anything crazy is happening.
Oh,
We've
dude,
told everybody.
even if I just go into a game store to film something simple, I'll ask, like, hey,
Right.
do you mind? I'm gonna try to shoot this thing over here. Or, hey, I want to take a picture of this, if that's okay, or whatever. Just so they know what's going on. You don't look like some creeper casing the joint or
That's industry
something.
standard to let people know if you're using their space and and talk to their customers.
But yeah, I just want to put that on people's radar. Like, awful this person did it, But again, at least give a little bit of credit to Kick for trying to make everybody whole and make right in the situation.
And we talk
Because
about Kick a lot, but the last couple of times somebody has done something stupid, they have responded quickly with bans. So maybe they're
they're
learning over
trying.
there.
They're at least putting out a little bit of effort. And you got to acknowledge the effort when it's there.
Now I think as long as Aiden Ross is still on the platform, we can't, we can't raise the roof for
No, you ain't
all the
lying.
group, but
The bar might be low,
yeah,
but at least they're trying to raise it.
there is a bar. I guess is what we
Fair.
can say we've learned for the past couple of weeks.
All right. I'm going to let you get some time in here.
Whew, speaking of low bars, as I'm sure you know, if you've listened to us for the past couple of weeks, MagicCon was this past week, and longtime listeners have heard about Michael David Lynch over at I Hate Your Deck. I'm amazed or I guess I'm not amazed anymore, but when, the scandal broke, I'm sure a lot of people don't know, but apparently just to try to make it quick, Michael David Lynch used to be a film director, and he filmed the movie, and one of the actresses, he wanted her to do a nude scene. She was not comfortable doing this scene, so what he told her was, well, we'll shoot it with and without nudity, and if you don't like, the scene with nudity, I won't use it. They shot the two scenes. They didn't discuss it further, so she assumed he wasn't going to use the nude scene since he had promised to discuss it with her. She goes to the screening, and it's the freaking nude scene in the movie in front of God and everybody. She is, of course, rightfully upset about that. Not only does he not apologize, he tells her, you should be happy I did that because, guys were asking me for your phone number because they want to,
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the kind of person we're dealing with here. Again, went on to create I Hate Your Deck. It becomes a huge phenomenon on YouTube. She didn't know about it. Somebody, I guess, called her attention to it. So she, it was brave enough to basically re-describe and relive her experience again and let people that are watching this channel know what kind of SOB he was. I thought we were riding the death knell for that channel when we discussed this, but no, that's apparently not what happened. It's still going. And after he apologized for what he did to this actress, pretty much, I would say but almost every woman who had filmed content for I Hate Your Deck asked, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. Please don't use my footage. After saying he would never do the thing he did to the actors again, he proceeded to use all these women's footage with their consent to use it having been removed. And lo and behold, he's on the floor. You're sitting here at MagicCon, and lo and behold, who asked you for a handshake but Michael David Lynch?
Yeah. And here's the thing I had a problem with, right? And I want to be clear, I think we all screw up in life. And if you own up to it, and if you apologize, you trying to make good and you want to start your path back, cool. I don't have a problem with that. But when you're just showing up trying to do business, it seems, and you think everybody's just all of a sudden going to be cool with you, well, now we have an issue. And my problem for me was that I'm talking to viewers, fans, just doing my thing, and he kind of just comes up, hand extended, which, when you're doing one of those things, somebody extends a hand, you kind of just reach out.
Everybody.
Yeah, and you look up to start a conversation, and my brain starts going through the middle of Rolodex of like, why does this dude seem familiar? Because we ain't met in person. I talked to him maybe once or twice online. All the stuff had blown up, and of course I'd seen his channel, when he was working stuff with Joe. But that's it. So things are turning. I'm like, wait, this is that dude, right? So immediately I'm kind of like, what's going on here? Like, why is this dude even here? And he's trying to be just, I don't know. The best thing I could have is trying to give the impression that he knew some amount of the creators or something. Whereas obviously I was like, hey, cool, man. I got to deal with these folks that are here or whatever. Because, I got people that, and I can't make a scene and talk about it because then now I'm the bad guy. You know what I mean? Like if I'm bringing up this stuff or whatever, and now there's a crowd or whatever, that's going to look bad on me for the rest of the weekend, right in the middle of the creator space. So I already knew what that's going to look like, so I couldn't say anything. So I just kind of politely excused myself and got back to what I was doing. But everybody was aware that he was kind of there. And I saw throughout the weekend, nobody, again, of the other creators I'm aware of that are all on the up and up, wanted to have anything to do with him. Like, he
That's
was
good.
definitely a point of conversation that, like, why was he even here? Why did he come up to me? I was like, dude, I don't know. He came up to me too. I was like, I ain't doing business with him. And dude, I tell you right now, I was just like, if this, I literally had thought, if this dude takes out his phone to take a picture, we are about to have a problem. Because
Right.
I am for sure not going to let this be a thing. And like, you ain't bringing my empire down. F you. Like, fortunately, he wasn't that bold. He wasn't out trying to take pictures, so he wasn't completely crazy. But it really was a thing. I was just like, what's even going on? And actually, I had the thought for a second, like maybe he's trying to for real make amends, right? He's gonna come back, apologize to all these people. He said he wasn't gonna use their stuff, and he did. And
To
if
me,
if
you do that in private. You don't,
sure,
because
but I'm
in public,
saying
like you said, you can't make a scene.
you
So even
probably
if you,
shouldn't do it publicly. But at least if your goal was contrition, I could at least somewhat understand it. But to my understanding, and I'm welcome to be corrected, but to my understanding, that did not happen. That is not what he was there for. Only things I saw appeared as though, and what other people's impression was he was there just trying to do business. Maybe because he can't get other creators on his channel.
yeah, I
Maybe he
heard
thought,
he was actively trying to recruit people to be on his
well,
show.
that would make sense. Because it
Just
might have
wanted,
just been because again, doing a research, I perused his channel for about the last year, and there's seems to be a reasonable cast of recurring characters, and none of them, as far as I can tell, are known creators in the community. So maybe he's like, man, I need to get some of these bigger names on there, or I need to get my foot in the door with some of these other people that have commander stuff happening. But didn't seem like that's gonna happen for good reason. So yeah, it was weird, man. I had to vibe check myself when he left. I'll tell you that. Cause I was just literally
yeah.
like, because I got to get back in the headspace of talking to people or whatever. But
It's
I,
weird when stuff like that happens. You just,
yeah, and I could tell. I knew I definitely had a demeanor change for about a minute while he was
yeah.
there because I could see a couple people look at me like they acknowledged the interaction, something wasn't right, but they didn't know what to ask, what to say. So it's just like they sort of just let it go when he walked off and we got back to business or whatever. So, I apologize if you were one of those people in line, by the way, but it was just a weird moment. And in my head, I was trying to process like, how do I deal with this? How do I call attention to it without making a scene or whatever? And because here's the thing: when we're already in public, and this is why I had a problem with it. Like, he's coming up and talking to you and trying to have this interaction in a very compromised situation
Yeah.
because these are people that are
You wouldn't
and
cuss him out right there.
yeah, and
You would.
admittedly, my lines and crowds were definitely smaller than some of the other people. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about I had all these people. But these are still people that went out of their way to come see you, and you're trying to make a positive
Yeah.
moment for them, and just make it a good, memorable thing.
Plus, you were, known for being, as your title says, chill, fun, and informative.
Oh,
If you could pick one creator who is probably not going to cuss you out, Daquan is probably going to be the one.
oh,
There's
bruh,
a
like
few people that would have just,
I've
nope.
done it, but it ain't gonna be like that.
Yeah,
So that was my problem. It's just like, okay, I gotta just let that go, let it be a thing. But I kept my eye out for him, and I will say a weird thing. And we talked about this off the air. Every single other creator that I would say is at least mid-size and up, we'll say like 10K plus subscribers or so, right? Or followers on Twitter or whatever, all had some amount of interactions, of significant interactions, where there was like a small line or people waiting to try to play a game with them, whatever it was. I'm not going to say he didn't have anybody all weekend, but when I saw him pass by my purview near like the creator area or whatever, he didn't really have people interacting with him, which feels very weird because he's got a channel with 140,000 subscribers. He's got, 20, 30, 40,000 views on each video. So we were talking about it, right? And I don't know if that means maybe those aren't all real numbers. We know things happen online. I'm not going to say that's the case. It just feels weird. The other more realistic option might be that his viewers might be some viewers of ours or friendly in our community, and they don't want people to know they associate with them. That's what that felt like. So like it was just weird. I don't know, man. But I don't know why he showed up the way he did.
Oh, I
I
think we
don't
know why. He was trying to see whose good graces he could get back into, or God forbid, maybe maybe try to approach somebody who somehow hadn't heard. And we talked about, that while we're all into the drama every week, not everybody is.
sure.
There are plenty of people who had no idea who this dude was
Oh,
or
no
why.
doubt. 100% people that were waiting to see me had no idea who he was. Like they just thought he was some other creator guy probably.
Yeah,
They didn't know. So I don't fault anyone else, but I will tell you all the other creators, we talk. They know. Like even just today, like, hey, have you worked with this company? Have you signed up for this? And like everybody's talking about all kinds of stuff. So like on the business end, people know. And worst case scenario, you would go work with them and somebody be like, hey, I don't know if you know, but hey, you might want to
yeah.
make sure you don't show up on his stuff or whatever. So yeah, it was just a weird interaction. And I don't know what the fallout's going to be just yet. I do know that Deanna, the woman that's in charge of the creators and stuff, like she's doing a follow up because he didn't have a creator badge, so it wasn't technically under her purview. But I know she said she's at least aware and following up because enough people did raise enough of a fuss about it.
Yeah.
So what comes in the future, I don't know, but that's all I know
Hopefully,
as
what
of
comes in
now.
the future is he's not allowed any more Magic Cons. Is what I would hope is what
I
comes from
wouldn't be
that.
upset about it. I'll tell you that right now.
Because that falls under, I guess, the purview of sexual harassment. And I think everybody else I know that falls into that category has been has been persona non grata from any Wizards sponsored events. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
hoping
honestly,
that.
I'm gonna also say I don't even know if he was removed because I can say I don't remember seeing him on the third day of the show at all. Now, again, there's a lot of people. He could have still been there and I just missed him or whatever, but he at least wasn't as prevalent around the creator space. So either he was told to leave, maybe he only had a 1 day pass, or enough of the creators just cold shouldered
Shunned
him.
him.
Yeah, that he just went to another part of the venue and just went and I don't know, played commander or whatever. So is what it is. Let's see. Our runtime's already going a little long, so we might have to save these. What did we learn until next time? And we're just gonna, because man, one of these topics we want to talk about, we're gonna go in circles on this one, so it probably needs as much time as we can give it. But uh, I will say this: this was already a little bit of a conversation in our Discord. Which, by the way, if you follow us on Patreon, you get access to our Discord. So that's a thing you may want to do. Just saying, I want to put that in your ear. But if you didn't see, Donato Giancola made a very long post. It was several paragraphs on Facebook. And I'm going to go over the details as far as I understand them. But by the end of it, I'm not 100% sure what he's trying to have us be mad at. And I think that's my confusion. Because I will tell you, my first thought is obviously you want to support the artist, right? You want to support the worker if you can. But you also have to tell me the thing that's wrong so I can at least research it, understand it, and know what I'm supposed to be mad at. But my understanding from the way he wrote it is he hasn't liked industry contracts for a while. He did hit some work with Marvel. Sounds like sometime between the 80s and 90s. Some of the stuff he was kind of vague on, but there's enough details for you to follow. He apparently didn't like the contracts, and we know of exploitative contracts with Marvel
Yeah.
from back in the day. So it wouldn't be that surprising. And he decided he's never going to do work with Marvel again. Now, for some reason, he's still bringing up the Trouble in Pairs. For those you don't know, Trouble in Pairs was done by another artist who plagiarized his artwork and basically drew over it and submitted that to Wizards, and it was a whole thing. He's still mad at Wizards about it for some reason. I don't know. Like, it's the other artist's fault. Obviously, Wizards is trusting you to submit original artwork. It wasn't. Wizards, from my understanding, went after the person to get their money back or whatever, settled with Giancola. And he even said, we settled on that artwork. Everything's done. So I don't know why he's mad about it, but he felt the need to brought it up and he's still mad at Wizards for it.
Well, I guess you finish and I'll go.
No, no, go ahead. What are you?
I was gonna say, I'm not obviously a visual artist, but as somebody that does acting and comedy, and like I think as an artist, you would like it if there was somebody on staff who, when you submitted Giancola's artwork, could recognize that was his artwork and be like, "Hey, bro, you can't do that."
To be honest, though,
But
there were fans of Giancola who didn't even recognize it for weeks till somebody went, "Oh, hey, I feel like I've seen this background before." You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like,
And
so
again, I know that's not the case.
yeah.
By the same token, I would love it if my boss in Murder Mystery realized that somebody completely lifted a monologue that I wrote, but I know it's probably not reality.
Oh,
He
sure,
watches too
sure.
many shows, but I get.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, they literally are getting thousands of pieces of artwork a year, and they're trusting everybody to do their job. But to their credit, as soon as they were notified that this was not what it was supposed to be, they followed up. They made everybody whole. Not sure, but he's mad about it, right? He
And
had some
again,
other
I get it. I
sure,
absolutely understand.
and
That's
then his next thing was apparently there was some contract he wanted to change some wording in with Wizards, and they didn't want to change the wording, so I guess they didn't agree to a contract. So he's going to do no more work with Wizards, which is fine. That's business. Like, somebody presents you a contract, you don't like it, y'all work on the language. If y'all can get it to line up for both sides, cool. We just don't have an agreement, and that's fine. I've been in some of those before. No hard feelings. That's just business. But then I guess his thing to be mad about was Wizards. For all you don't know, companies put together style guides for work to be done. It doesn't matter if it's a clothing company, if it's a game company, whatever. They put together packages of stuff so anybody who works with them knows we like our images with this type of lighting, we use these types of colors, we use these fonts, use whatever. So in this case, because Wizards is working with Marvel and they're doing particularly comic book art because they don't want it to look too realistic like the movies because those are different licenses. Silly, but that's the way business is. They had to put together a style guide, from my understanding, with the direction of Marvel, saying, all right, if you're going to do these characters, we want them to look like these 80s and 90s style of artwork or whatever for this particular project. Well, one of the things they submitted for a style guide to artists has a piece of artwork that Giancola did from Marvel, which he is not happy about. Now, admittedly, style guides are not paid in any way, they're literally just directional things. But my issues here with those facts is that I've seen style guides, even with that situation with old artist work that's submitted and shown to people or whatever. That's just a thing that happens in multiple industries. Not saying it's right, just saying I know that's just a thing that goes on. The other is if you sign that deal with Marvel and they owned the artwork, there's really not an argument here.
well, I think there is. It's just like which side of it are you on? It's
Well, I
like
mean, what's
there's
the
an
argument
argument.
though? Like,
The
if
argument is that some of these art contracts are not on the up and up. That's
no, if
for
they're bad
example,
contracts, cool. Let's talk about the details of the contract then, right? If that's the
and
thing,
I don't know what deal he cut. I don't know how much he's
that's
allowed to
what I'm
discuss
saying.
about the
Give me a
contract.
thing I can be mad at. Like, if you're gonna post this on here, you want to get us fired up. Because really, this almost feels more like the rage should be directed more at Marvel than even Wizards. But because that style guide, I guarantee you, was put together forever ago because they had to start working on cards forever for us to get the
And
artwork
part
and
of the
stuff.
argument is like, I don't know that style guides were part of his original contract because if I drew you art for a comic book, but now you're using my art, that's the same argument we're having with AI.
Sure, but the thing is, if you because there are contracts you sign that they have the right to the artwork to use it how they see fit, whatever. Now, I don't know if he signed one of those,
Exactly. And some of
but
those contracts specifically say, I'm doing the artwork for specifically
he
Iron
also,
Man issue 10,
when I read it, I could not find, and maybe I misread it. Feel free to point it out. Hit me up in the Discord. I will gladly, eat it on next week. I'll take the L. But I couldn't find anything where he said the contract I signed did not allow for this use for the artwork. Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't even know at the end what I'm supposed to be mad at, other than he doesn't like either company anymore for various
And
different reasons.
again, you would like as an artist there to be somebody on Marvel's side who would recognize the artwork and say, maybe we shouldn't use artwork from somebody who sued us. These are
But
things that you would ideally like somebody to be able to notice.
sure, but if that's the, I don't know, let's say he did the definitive artwork they want to use as the example, they do own, assuming they own the rights to it. then they can include it in the style guide. Now, I don't know if they do, but I would assume if somebody was sued over it and you couldn't use it, then the case would just be just go back after them because they're using artwork legally they're not supposed to be able to use, right? Like,
That's assuming you, because again, we're talking about suing Disney. That assumes
sure,
regular human being can afford to sue Disney. In most cases, you can't.
but again, tell me that's the case. Tell me, you know what I mean? Like, if they're not supposed to be using
I
it,
mean,
cool.
he may have said all he's legally allowed to say.
Because I'm like, cool, we'll make a social issue out of it. Like, you can rally the people. You know what I mean? Like, people, we want to go after big companies. Like, I mean, if you're like, hey, look, they're using my artwork and we had agreement where they're not supposed to be using it. Cool. Let's talk about it. But that was my only thing. I read through it. And like I said, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some obvious things there that I missed in context. But there was a lot of random facts all included in this thing. Like I said, we're still talking about like trouble in pair stuff and old Marvel contracts or whatever. And I didn't really, when I got done, understand, like, other than he's not going to work with either company again because he doesn't like various things about both of them, which is totally legit and reasonable.
Yeah.
Other than that, I didn't really gather what the post was about. Like, who am I supposed to be hating? Like, is it Marvel? Is it Wizard? Is it both? Do I know why? Or am I just backing you because you're an artist that's done cool artwork on cards that I like? You know what I mean? It just felt weird. So I don't know.
Well, Wizards to the point where they've screwed enough people where I feel like, I'm going to be in the artist corner at this point.
Agree. I want to be. I do because that's what I'm saying. Like, I get it. There's probably a reason. I just want to know what the reason is. That's all I'm saying. Like, tell me what I'm supposed to be mad at so I can back it. Because that's like, even with family, if they come up and they're just complaining about a thing, and I'm like, well, I ain't gonna go jump down somebody's throat till you give me the details why you aren't the one that messed up. Because I ain't gonna throw myself in there and then to find out that like you're just mad and you want me to go after somebody. Like, no, you got to tell me why I'm supposed to be mad at someone. And honestly, I feel bad because it's a long post. I
Yeah.
mean, it's big. So he had something he's trying, and maybe honestly, you're right. Maybe there's some stuff he just can't talk about. So he told us everything he could legally within the agreements of the contracts, the DNAs or NDAs or whatever, right? Maybe that's the case. But if so, it just feels weird. And me personally, if I can't talk about something in detail enough to explain the thing, I'm probably not going to make the post because I feel like at that point, I'm inviting some stuff that
Yeah.
I probably don't want that I can't back up with facts that I can show people. Because
And also, who could have ever envisioned that Iron Man would be on a Marvel card? This is the thing. Like he
oh,
may be
on a magic
fighting.
card, you mean? Yeah, for sure.
This may be for the next person. His contract may not say that they can't do that. Maybe he's putting some out there so the next person, can put that in their contract.
And you know what? I could back that. If you're just saying like, hey, look, I just want people to know how I feel. This is stuff that can happen. And just include that as a note. If you're a future artist that signs one of these contracts, be aware that the language allows this stuff to happen. Right? And even at that, I'd be like, okay, this is cool. So
Because I
now this is a
remember
warning for other artists.
I remember when one of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies came out, some reporter somewhere found out like, hey, whatever happened to the guy that created Rocky Raccoon? Turned out he was penniless, damn near homeless, yet he created Rocky Raccoon, who was essentially the star of a multi-million-dollar movie franchise, possibly billion close to at this
Yeah.
point. They made a bunch of money off of those Guardians movies. And obviously, when this got reported, Disney realized they had a huge PR nightmare on their hands, and they got him some help and some money and a special, and he was honored at the screening of Guardians of the Galaxy. So it may be a situation where, and again, he had also signed a contract, but now even it's commonly known in the comic book industry and comic book community that those original Marvel contracts were very crappy.
But
They
again,
took advantage of a bunch of artists.
and that's exactly it though. Even then, those details came out and we went, man, that contract's effed up. Disney got held accountable and went and made them whole. Right? So like, if that's the case, let us know.
And as I said, he may not be able to
And
list.
that's exactly it. And that's the tough part for me. It's like, I got you. Like, nothing wrong with being angry. Nothing wrong feeling the way you do if you've been wronged or you feel you've been wronged by either or both companies. But people have come to me like, "What do you think about this?" And I'm just like, literally, people were kind of surprised and said, "Man, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be mad at or who to be mad at." Like, I'm still not sure if he's more mad at Marvel or more mad at Wizards.
I feel like
Like,
it's 50-50.
and it
It
might
seems
be. That's what I'm
50-50.
saying. Like, I don't know after reading. That's my problem. Not that
Uh,
I don't support him as an
Plus,
artist.
how would you ever envision two of your arches, specifically Marvel and Wizards? When would you ever thought they'd have worked together? Universe
Sure, sure.
Beyond has taken us all kinds of places we never thought we'd go.
And I'm also curious because I have gotten to know several artists over the years. And there's been all types of artist contracts that had issues back in the day, and we know we've heard stories about stuff. So it's not unreal that those things could be happening, right? Like it's very believable that he could have been wronged by both companies on various levels. So I'm not trying to give each company a pass either. It's just without more details, I don't know what the issue at hand is. That's the problem. Because we see other artists that have before and after him signed similar contracts that are doing tons of work at all these magic cons and everything else, and some of them I wouldn't even be surprised if someone with that many people like having constant lines for 3 days probably didn't hit 6 figures at some point, from one show. So there's still something there. And again, contract might work for some people, might work for other people. That is totally believable. Doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, everybody's got a different situation. Hell, there's contracts I signed with different things and other people would not sign and vice versa. So totally understand. But it was just a weird thing. Even and what's funny is I tried to follow some of the conversations on Facebook because it showed up in different Magic Facebook groups, obviously. And even in those conversations, people weren't even arguing about the same things. So I'm just like, all right, so none of us really know what we're supposed to be mad at right now. Everybody said, well, it's obviously Wizards' fault. Well, no, this is a Marvel thing. Well, no, it's an artist contract thing. Well, no, it's a this thing. Well, style guides are effed up and blah, blah. It's like, we don't even know what we're mad at. Like, we're having 10 different conversations. Maybe it's all bad. Honestly, maybe that's the other thing. Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe he just
that's probably where I'm gonna vote.
yeah,
It's
maybe he's
all
just
probably
pointing out,
bad.
like, I'm mad at all this and all these things are F up and y'all should just know. And maybe that's all it was. Maybe it was just an informative thing to be artists have all these issues and y'all should know about them. And maybe he's not trying to rally any particular thing. Maybe we took it and just read it and went, all right, what's the problem we're trying to solve? Maybe there's not one. Maybe it's just the industry's bad. Maybe that's the takeaway. I don't know.
Which is still a problem and one we
It
will
is
hopefully be able to solve. But
absolutely a problem. But maybe, and maybe he didn't clarify because he was just in the middle of a mood. You know how it is. Like you get in one of these things, you're like, I just got to rant. I'm gonna let people know about all this that happened, and then he just hit sins, right? And then that was it. Like maybe that's what happened. I don't know. But yeah, it's worth checking out. If you just look up Giancola on Facebook, it's out there. You'll probably hell if you're in a Facebook group, you probably already seen it. So not a surprise. Quick note: if you're going to be looking for a streamer event for Foundations, unfortunately, we are told there will not be one, which is sad because there are some sweet cards in that set that I would love to play with. But they are going to do one for Pioneer Masters. A lot less exciting. So I don't know why that choice was made. I'm a little confused. But hey, I don't get to make those decisions. It's out there. But Brian, there's a thing that's really, really sad, and we I think we talked about this last week, actually, or if not, sometime in the last 2 weeks. I don't know. I've slept a lot since then. But Concord Studio, Firewalk, that made Concord, the game that was supposed to be a hero shooter that everybody was going to be excited about, that they worked on for 8 years, and they spent estimated between 200 and 400 million dollars on. They're already closing up shop. Game came out late August, didn't even last 2 months.
and that's unfortunate because I guess that studio was literally that game was their project. So yeah, if the game's a flop, you don't need the studio anymore. These are
Dude,
the sad parts of video game development, unfortunately.
I can't remember a time. This has to be the biggest flop, right? In video games?
You're talking about of all time or just this year?
Maybe all time. Because I'm really
Fine.
trying to think, like,
I mean, fine. That's hard to say. There's a lot
because
of
we can.
video
I mean,
games.
obviously, we heard the old stuff from like the Atari with the ET only selling so many
Yeah,
copies, or right.
there's
That's a thing.
Now you're gonna make me let me search biggest video game
Yeah,
flop.
because I'm
Sure,
thinking like, dude, you worked on a
I
game for
mean,
8 years. You couldn't get 1,000 people concurrently on your servers to play the game at any point, and your game was out for only 2 months, and not only they are killing the game, they're disbanding the studio because it was
all
so
right.
bad.
PC Gamer has a thing saying, "Is this the biggest?" It specifically says biggest live service failure of all time.
Well, that
Let's
has to
see.
be close if it's not.
Let's see how it compares to other
'Cause
flops.
hell, they never even got
Uh,
to 700 people, much less 1,000 from the numbers I saw reported. So that's kinda crazy. I don't even know.
oh, it said the day, but this isn't as bad financially, but the day before only lasted 4 days.
Okay.
So that's pretty. So in terms of time, I guess that. But in terms of money, I have
Yeah,
yet to
this
see anything.
this
And
has
of
to be
course,
the worst.
games always get more expensive, so that'll be somebody else will take
Sure,
that title in a year or
but
two.
even if the games that you spend 100,000,000 on, they at least sell, you know, 10 or 20,000 copies and then flop. Like, I don't think I've ever heard of a thing that has done this bad. And that's gotta.
Lawbreakers was also pretty bad.
Which one?
Lawbreakers, you probably never even heard of it.
Nah.
It was by the guy that created Gears of War. So yeah, in terms
Mm.
of people, because that's part of why everybody just assumed it was got to succeed, right? Sony is bagging it, like not
I mean, hell,
necessarily,
I remember when
unfortunately.
people thought Artifact was gonna be a big thing. That game was supposed to be made by, like, Valve and Richard Garfield, and they had, like, these huge names involved, and I literally watched one demo and told everybody, like, "Nah, that ain't gonna last a year." Now, granted, it lasted, like, 3 or 4 months before people quit caring about it, but
Yeah,
it just there's some things I get it. Like, you bring in the big names, you put a big budget behind it, doesn't mean it's automatically gonna work, right? It still has to check all the other boxes.
so I just hit Artifact on the list.
Well, there you go. There you go. It was another one. It wasn't as bad,
Pretty
but
bad.
it's up there. As
Yeah,
far that one failed more, I would say it's on the bus list because of expectations.
yeah,
I think people went, "Oh, this is the dude
and
that created Magic. These are the people who have the best online servers. This is this thing. We got these designers from this other game." And then nobody cared because it didn't meet anything it was trying to do.
I should mention Artifact is technically still playable, but there's not developing it anymore. So
Yeah, I mean, it's playable. I mean, like, there's several games that are still online and playable, but I wouldn't
it's the only one
recommend
on
them to
this
anybody.
list that's still playable. You
Yeah,
can't play Concord anymore.
I wouldn't recommend a lot of those games to anybody, but I mean, probably just because Valve just has space, probably, so might as well just let it be on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wild, man. That's even a thing. That much money over 8 years. That means they spent an average of somewhere, depending on estimation, 25 to 35 million dollars a year for 8 years, and then you got to the finish line and was like, "Yep, we don't even have a backup plan. It's just done in 2 months." Like,
I'm trying
no
to
way
see
to
how
restructure
long
things, no
Anthem
way to
was in
market it.
development.
It's just done.
Anthem was a pretty big flop. I'm looking to see how long it was in development if I
I
can
do
find that
remember
anywhere.
hearing about Anthem. Didn't know anybody who played it, but
And same thing, it is EA and BioWare, so you just wouldn't figure they would miss that hard, but they did.
again, you put another couple of big names together, thinking you're just gonna have an auto hit because of the names involved, and that's not it. It's tough, man. I do feel bad because there has to be somewhere along the line that even people working on it probably knew, but you're
Yeah.
just like, it's a good paying gig. Hopefully, it just does something once we put it out there, and then when it doesn't, you're losing a whole studio of people, and just kind of the
Yeah.
nature of the beast. You know
It's
what? You know what?
it's just been a horrible year for for game closures,
In a
unfortunately.
way, I sort of feel like this, like I do when I see people that get bad tattoos that are big, because I'm
Wow.
like, you went to like multiple sessions, right? And you can see them working on it, but you were still like, nah, I'm gonna let them finish. You know what I mean?
Cody Rhodes' neck tattoo is the first
Exactly.
one that comes to mind, the American
You just go
flag.
like, nah, and then at the end you're like, I guess this is alright. Like that's sort of what I feel like happened with Concord. Like, you had a chance, but nobody spoke up enough, or whoever's in charge just kept driving force saying this is the plan, it's gonna work. and nobody.
It's the entertainment industry. If you spend $100 million on a game, it's coming out in most cases.
Yeah,
They're not going to pump the brakes at that point.
but dude, they had 8 years to make changes along the way. You still
And
could have had it
I'm
come
sure they
out.
made lots of changes, but it's
Well, you're
just
right. They might have made changes that were all just bad. Like
or
that's
even,
possible.
who's 10 years ago, it might have been a great game. Is the thing. 8 years is a lifetime in game development.
Oh, no doubt.
That could have been a really popping game in 2014 or whatever, but not
Yeah, but
now.
to be fair, all the designs look kind of clunky and dated, and the
Yeah.
backstory didn't really hit compared to current games. Like it was
There,
all
are, there are
weird.
very few things, movies or games, that are in development for 10 years and actually come out. And
Oh, no doubt.
that's a long time.
That's why I was surprised when I heard an 8 year number on it. I was like, that's forever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm surprised you didn't shut down the studio before then. But all right, let's wrap things up because we're running a little bit long, but we knew that was going to happen. There was a lot to talk about. But today on the dinner table, Brian, I'm going to ask you, what is the most you have spent on a card or just a collectible as a whole? Could be anything. Comic books, maybe some rare piece of thing you have in your house. I don't know.
I mean, I ended up with a Top Shot that was worth 1,500. I didn't pay 1,500 for it. I pulled it randomly from a pack, but that is probably one of the most. I would think probably the most expensive collectible I've ever had, and it's not worth that anymore because
You didn't get the
NFTs.
1500 out of it?
I no, I mean, I thought it was. I didn't. I knew nothing about the market at that point, so I thought it was only going to go up.
You didn't catch it on the way down and get like half?
It was because part of it was kind of like a magic thing. Part of the reason it was so expensive because you needed it to complete a set, and I
Oh,
didn't even
gotcha.
know. I knew nothing about any of that.
Yeah, that's a thing when it comes to collectibles that I don't think people understand is a lot of it is, information about the markets as well.
Yeah,
Because lots of people say, "Oh, I'm going to get this comic book," and we saw a lot in the '90s, right, where people
right.
would go buy a comic, but they'd buy a second one if it was like a rare cover or a number one or whatever, just to keep it tucked away, not realizing that that book's never going to be more than $15 or $20, at least not for 10 decades or something, because everybody else did the same thing.
My mom was real bad about it. She would buy the first issue of anything, thinking it was going to pop off. Like, look at this! It's issue number one. Yes, but it's issue number one of Alf, the comic
Yeah.
book. And she'd be like, it's never gonna be worth it
To be
anymore.
fair, I do think the number one of Alpha is at least working a little bit of something. But I get your
Don't
point.
tell me that because I don't still have it.
Yeah, but in the '90s, I was a big thing, and I remember even when I was younger, trying to explain to people, it's like, yeah, but we want these rare number ones because nobody kept them.
Let me see if I can find issue
So,
number one of
so when
Alf.
we
I bet
find those, right, they're worth money because there's only say 1,000 left in the world. But for every major comic that came out in the '90s, there's literally tens of thousands. And if I want to go back and get a mint condition copy of them, I guarantee you one exists. They're not going to be that hard to find. Same thing happened with sports cards and through
yeah,
the late '80s, early '90s. We kind of saw that with all collectibles. So even with Magic, people were shocked in at MagicCon seeing the amount of money some of the vendors were paying, and I was explaining, yeah, but if you got an old mint condition thing from something from Arabian Nights, that's a
yeah.
30-year-old card. And it's in mint condition. There's not going to be a ton of those around, so they will pay you top dollar. So it's all a matter of just understanding what it is you have. Oh,
This
did you?
person is claiming that Alf comics will be worth $4 to $7. This is me being extremely skeptical. I could get $7 for an Alf comic.
Get
I wish
seven
I
dollars
still
for
had it
Alf.
now.
That's funny. I don't know what. Like now, as far as pulls, I was one of the lucky people that pulled the Lotus out of the Zendikar packs
Oh wow, okay.
when those were going on. And actually, that's a sad story because we had just run all the pre-releases and stuff that weekend. So I had a couple of like half cracked boxes or whatever that I was like, I'll just open these for singles and I'll sort them. I think I was just getting caught up on like football highlights because it was like Sunday night. And, I'm going through making my piles and I literally almost tossed it in a pile and went, oh, a Lotus. That's cool.
Wow,
And then just like
nice.
set it down and
That's
kind
real
of kept,
neat.
because dude, I was so tired. Like it was hard to even be excited for opening the Lotus because it's a long weekend. But that was actually the second Lotus I owned, but the only one I owned once they were expensive. Like I owned one back when they were like $100 or whatever it was. Because I'm old. As they say, back when the rocks were soft, one of those types of things. But I don't know. The most I don't really buy a lot of rare collectibles. Like, I feel like I may have bought something somewhere along the line that might have been near like $100 range to either finish off a collection or a
Because
book.
I do content, I always buy the Hyper Viper Fighting Edition of Madden, NBA 2K, what
Yeah.
have you.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like I've done something like that in the past, but
Of course,
nothing
soon as you
crazy.
open that, it's no longer worth $100. It's just
I
that's what they
mean,
charge you for it.
I bought a huge like Starscream collectible thing for my wife, I think for Christmas one year. That was like
Okay.
$150. So I guess
The
that
Starscream,
counts.
I approve.
Yeah, I'm like, I guess that counts. I mean, it's pretty big. It's kind of cool. It's like I think they call him like Emperor Starscream because it's got like the crown and the crazy sword or
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
Like, that's kind of cool looking. And that's
Right
probably worth
before
money now.
right before Megatron murks him.
Well, yeah. So like that's probably it. I don't know. And it's probably sad because I think the person who asked me this was probably thinking there's gonna be some crazy answer. But no, most of the stuff I have that's valuable, I have acquired through like purchasing collections, or I just have had it
In
for a long
fairness,
time.
having owned two Lotuses is
Yeah,
pretty
but
crazy for
also
those of
like
us that have never had
some of
even
my
one Lotus.
valuable stuff is also because I owned it before it was valuable. Like I have like a bizarre Baghdad and dual lands or whatever. Like when I got the dual lands, they were like $10. Now they're like 100, 300, whatever dollars. So when people look at my decks, they're like, damn, you're balling. And I was like, well, I've had these since they weren't worth anything. Like
Right.
before I was playing them with sleeves on some of them because sleeves
Yeah.
didn't exist yet. Right. So it's kind of weird to when people have that reaction. I'm just like, no, I didn't pay that for these at all. I've owned these before they were even worth a pair of like beat up sneakers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like before they were worth a pair of beat up Payless sneakers.
Quan was country when country wasn't cool.
Sadly, that's true. Man, I got some country stories to tell people too. When folks don't know, like you might meet city me now, but let me get around family and just be Southern country. Like y'all don't know nothing. Like for real, that's a thing. I was code switching before I knew it had a name. Let me for real. On that note, Brian, why don't you know where they can find you on social media?
All right, I am Brian Sonic on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
And you can find me everywhere at PowrDragn, PowrDragn, and come follow me on Blue Sky because apparently everybody's migrating, or a big chunk of people are, from Twitter over there. And I got like 300 new followers on Blue Sky last week. So welcome to all of you new people. But wherever you're watching or listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Y'all know the drill. Take care of yourselves and your family. Remember to be awesome and be awesome to each other.